Again, double check your filters, make sure that those are in the right order, that only curves objects are being selected. One thing that is different about the setup, in this file, what we have done is we have hidden some controls. So the deformer, right, the squash and stretch deformer has this tool that lets you angle the deformers, right? So you can rotate them, but that's not visible by default. It's actually hidden. So if you want that control, you have to just turn that layer on, okay? So if that layer is visible, then you can see everything. What I'll do, frame one, I'm just gonna grab everything and hit S just to lock everything. I have auto key on because that's how I like to animate. Just remember that, again, for other courses, it's probably not a good setting to have on, but while I'm animating, I like to have auto key on, so if I forget to hit S, I don't lose my work. Okay, now this is a bit messy, but I'm gonna start with turning off my, go here, I'm gonna say show none. Let's get a lot of stuff here. Curves, surfaces, polygons, camera, image plane if we need it, and motion trails, and the grease pencil. So I can toggle the grease pencil on and off if I don't want to see that mess there. I made a guess here that frame 7, I would be on the edge. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm just going to go here. I'm grabbing the blue control, right, which is the translate control. And I'll go to frame 7, and I'm just going to move right to the edge. So I'm just going to imagine that's right there. If I needed to double check, then I would go to my perspective view and really be precise and just make sure that I'm getting the last moment of contact just on the edge before it rolls off. And I'll go back to my camera. Okay, I'm going to hit S. So the only thing that's happening is I'm going from A to B, just to there. Turn on my grease pencil again. And you can see over here, I've got this grease pencil drawing here. Then I said frame 19, it's going to hit the ground. Okay, so I'll go over to frame 19. And I'm just going to grab this, move it down. And again, it's just a guess. I don't know if this is going to be perfect or not. Let's turn off the grease pencil. But it needs to hit the ground. So I'm going to move this so I can actually see it's embedded in the ground, so I know it's actually hitting the ground instead of floating above. And you know, maybe it's here, right? Just make a guess. And of course, what Maya is going to do is it's going to give us really terrible in-betweens. But that's okay. I'm going to ignore it for right now. I'm going to go back to my grease pencil plan that I had on frame 1. So that was 19 on the ground, 27 up in the air. So that would be the next point I have to get right. So I go over to 27. And again, I'm making a guess somewhere here, right? It's going to go up, right? Boing. And then maybe that's a bit far to the right, something like that. So I was using 8 frames up and then 8 frames to go back down and then over. Hit S. And so there's the frame 1, frame 7, frame 19, I hit the ground. 27, I'm up in the air. 35, I'm on the ground again. And then I have to double check my numbers and see what did I use as a guess for hitting the wall. So I made a guess, maybe 5 frames, like frame 40. Okay, we'll give that a try. So frame 40, I'll hit the side here. And again, I'll make sure I can see this thing is intersecting so I know it's actually hitting the wall. Boom, like that. Boom, bonk. All right, so I hit the wall and then another 5 frames to go back down onto the floor. I hit the ground. Boom, boom, maybe a little further. And then I have to do these little tiny bounces, right? Because at this point, I'm imagining it's going to lose a lot of energy. So I just kind of drew some squiggles over here. I wasn't really precise. So this is where I would let you just try to figure it out yourself and say, well, I don't know how high up and down it should go. And the only way I'll know if I'm close is if I hit play, right? Just to see if the timing feels believable. Okay, so I've got that, hit the ground, and I've been using what that was, 5 frames. So I'd like that to be a little bit shorter. So let's just try 3 frames. So I'll go up a little. Right, so I'm just going up, bonk, 3 frames up, 3 frames down. And then let's try, just 2 frames up. Let's hit 1, 2, and I want this to be like a really tiny little bounce. Another 2 frames. Hit the ground. So I hit the wall, boom, boom, boom. And then I'll put in a point. I think I guess something was like 74 or something like that, or 71. If this is 55, yeah, let's just make this 75. Just give myself 20 frames to have this thing roll to a stop. Okay. So if I step through, and let me just turn off the grease pencil because that's really messy. I'm starting up on the platform. I'm on the edge, hit the ground, up, hit the ground, hit the wall, hit the ground, go up, hit the ground, go up, hit the ground, and then roll. So those are all the points that I need to just block in the basic idea. I know when I hit play, Maya is not going to do anything wonderful to make this look believable. Everything's going to feel really swimmy. It's going to feel like we're riding a wave. And that's because of the graph editor, right? We looked at that last week, that everything in the graph editor is joined with smooth points. So I'm going to go open up the graph editor. And if I look at this translate Y, right, you can see that this is the reason that the ball is slowing down when it hits the low points. And it's because of the shape of the curve. It's all bell-shaped, all right? So what you can do is when you're doing the bounces, you just go grab all the low points, right? Not that one. And then I'm just gonna hit them with the same, right? Make sure these are all, you know, broken tangents. And if you want, an easy trick is if you grab all those and just hit linear, it will just point them all up. It won't be perfect, but at least it starts putting things into a line, right? But as I mentioned, one of the issues that I was noticing with some people's bounces was that the spacing was very even on the way down. And that's this part I'm talking about, where you have a big chunk of the curve which fits a straight line. So what we would want to do here is we want to go here and move this up as much as we can until we get a pucker, until we have a problem, right? So I'm just sort of rolling it back to here, and I do the same thing here, right? Same thing on this side, right? Break the curve and then fix it. Then go to the other side, same thing, break the curve and then fix it. And, you know, once you see the pattern, you know, hopefully this will be a little bit easier to get through, right? And even no matter how small the bounces, go in and do it. Even if it's just a frame, at least you know you've done everything you can, right? And I can see this one, it's going to be a little bit flat if I jack those tangents up a bit too far. Under display, heads up display, there. So this is where if you wanted, of course, if you were in modeling class, you might have turned on things like polycount, right? But we've turned that off for this file. But one thing you can have on here is the frame rate, which we do have, right, listed down here. So if the frame rate is checked, when you hit play, you'll see what the computer is able to keep up with. So if it's close to 24, then you know that I'm looking at something in real time. You also want to make sure when you right click on the timeline and you go to playback speed, make sure it's set to real time. It does feel a bit floaty to me. It does feel a little bit slow. So what I could do is I could change that by a couple of ways. If something feels slow, I could take away time. The other thing I could do is I could say, well, what if we just lifted the ball up a little higher? What if I made that distance a little bit bigger? Okay. And then, oops, there we go. Play. And see if that feels believable. Boom. It's not bad, but I think I may have pushed it a little too high. So again, I'll just sort of adjust and then see how I feel about it. Cool. Okay. Now, another way that I can judge the animation, one of the things that I was talking about was this direction here, which is Z, how it should be a straight line. But there is a way that we can actually see what that movement is doing without the up and down. You can turn things off. So if I grab the up and down curve, the translate Y, I can go into the curves menu and I can say mute channel. And what it will do is it will turn off the up and down. So when I hit play, I just see left and right. And then I can look and see, is there anything in there where I notice something is going a little bit off or a little bit weird, right? So right in here, I can see it slows down, and you can see that this is where the curve is changing shape. It's got this kind of steepness here, and then afterwards it's a little bit flatter, so it's a bit slower. And then right here at the end, it picks up speed, right? And then it goes this way. So this is a very useful tool to just look at one direction and get an idea as to whether or not what you have has any hitches in it. I could do the same thing if I wanted with the height. So I could go back and say, let's just unmute. So now that curve is back on, and I could turn off the left and right and just mute that one. And then the only thing I would see is the bouncing, right? So I can just look at the bouncing and just look at the spacing there and see, is there anything that I don't think is working properly, right? So it just bounces on the spot. And that might help your brain just focus on one thing rather than trying to put everything in there at once. You can kind of go line by line or curve by curve just to see what each one does. So I'm going to unmute this one. So I know this should be more of a straight line. What I'll do is I'm going to go visualize, create editable motion trail. And this will give me a nice graph in my scene, so I'll be able to see how things move. But of course, it doesn't tell me the whole picture. I know this is looking okay, but I need to fix this. So if I grab, let's see, this is when I hit the wall right there. Okay, if I grab everything here, maybe not everything there, just there, and then I make the whole curve a straight line, then I'm going to get a very nice abrupt change in direction. Maya by default will flatten it out, right? And that will soften the impact. You will slow down before you hit the wall. Okay, so I want to keep everything really nice and sharp. And the only thing that I want to have flat is here. If this is a straight line, the ball is going to stop on a dime and just break. So that means it's not slowing down. So I know at this point, that's not right. That has to be flat. So I need to slow down and come to rest. So in this part, I probably still have to do a little bit of work. And in here you can see my eye is not doing the best job of judging distance. So what I might do is I might go in here and say, let's make all these straight lines. But this one, I'm going to have to split it. One side of this is going to be a straight line, right? So I want this to connect here. But this side, I want that to point towards that endpoint. So that's going to be a little more complex. There we go. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, it's a little better. There we go. And of course, at this point, I haven't done any squash and stretch yet. When we're looking at the rubber ball, we want to see squash and stretch, but not too crazy, right? Don't have it be so distorted that it really feels off or really too zany, too crazy. And for the bowling ball, there should be none. No squash and stretch. So the only thing that I've animated right now, I've just animated this control. I haven't done anything else. So this is very easy to edit right now. So if I was worried that maybe I was in the air for too long a time, then I would just look at the numbers and see, okay, well, how many frames? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what if I took away 2 frames and made it 6 and 6? So I have to grab everything and then move it 2 frames over. And then on the other side, grab everything 2 frames over. So I just want to see what happens to this bounce if I just take away time and then hit the play button. And right now, when I look at it, it feels rushed. So what I did didn't improve it. It made it feel too quick. It doesn't feel like gravity anymore. It feels like it's being pushed up and pulled down. So I'll just undo what I did there. So now I'm back to 8 frames up and 8 frames down. I could do the same thing, but go the other direction. Let's say I add 2 frames on either side of that high point, and then see if it feels too slow, too floaty. And you can see when I move keys that unfortunately, it doesn't mean that the tangents in the graph editor are going to behave themselves. So I have to go in and kind of correct that. And you can see the motion trail kind of gave me a little bit of a clue. The motion trail won't update until you go and actually touch the ball and then hit undo to actually get it update the shape changes I did here. I'll hit play again. Yeah, now it feels the opposite problem. It's too many frames. So 10 frames up and 10 frames down is too slow. So at least I know with 8 frames, I'm hitting a decent timing. I think that is a good place to be, that I can kind of live with that. So I just have to go here and adjust the timing again, just put things back and just make sure, yep, 8 frames. So plus 8 is 27, and then plus 8, give me 35. Move everything back. So this is what I had originally. So the guess was pretty reasonable.